Imagine getting kicked out of your adventuring party, and instead of crying or plotting revenge, you throw a massive celebration because it's exactly what you wanted. This is Ed. He didn't just get kicked out of one party, he's been kicked out of 100 different fantasy worlds. And every single time he gets banished, he gets a permanent overpowered cheat skill. Now his real game is finally about to begin. Our story starts a century into Ed's bizarre journey. He still clearly remembers the first door, the first world, and the faces of the comrades he traveled with. Ed is playing the ultimate version of New Game Plus. He has spent the last 100 years getting himself exiled from 100 different Isekai worlds on purpose, collecting super powerful cheat skills from each one. Standing in front of door number 1, holding a golden key, Ed genuinely believes that after 10 long years away, a peaceful, quiet life is finally waiting for him on the other side. Bro couldn't be more wrong. But before he can open that door, we have to look at how he managed to clear his final world. Flashback to a typical fantasy tavern. Ed is having a drink with his party when the vanguard suddenly drops a bomb on him. "Hey Ed, you don't have to come tomorrow." Ed, completely oblivious, thinks he just got a random day off. But the leader cuts him off. "No, we don't need you anymore. This is our consensus." Ed panics, or at least he's LARPing that he is. He jumps up, waving his hands, reminding them that they all made a solemn promise to defeat the Demon King together. He turns to the hero of the party, hoping it's just a bad drunk joke. But the hero looks away with a dead serious expression, confirming the harsh reality. The hero explains that while Ed was incredibly talented and helpful when he first joined, lately he's completely stalled out. While the rest of the party has been grinding, leveling up, and sharpening their skills for the final battle, Ed has been cutting corners on his chores and spending all his free time just doing self-training and relaxing. The party claims they've endured his slacking for long enough. They hope that maybe, just maybe, this harsh wake-up call will motivate him to take life seriously again. With heavy hearts, the party delivers the final blow. You are banished from the hero's party. Ed bows his head, trembling in silence. The atmosphere is tense. The party feels guilty, until a massive ping sounds in Ed's head. A system notification pops up. Condition met. 10 minutes remaining until return. Suddenly, the despair completely vanishes from Ed's face, replaced by a massive, sinister grin. Ed loses his shit, leaping into the air, screaming, "Yes, finally," at the top of his lungs. The party members are absolutely flabbergasted, wondering if the sheer emotional trauma of being fired literally broke his brain. The mage looks terrified, and the hero asks if he's gone insane. Ed just looks back with a perfectly calm face and says, "No, I'm sane." He's more than sane. He's officially unlocked his 100th cheat skill, and his real adventure back through the worlds is about to begin. Right after the party thinks he's completely lost his mind, Ed calms down and smiles, saying his wish finally came true. But before he leaves, he has one last thing for them. He smirks, opens his hand, and suddenly, a massive, swirling black vortex of dark energy erupts right in the middle of the tavern. The party completely freaks out. The witch screams for him to hold on, assuming he's pulling out a forbidden dark magic weapon to take his revenge. But nah, the terrifying vortex shrinks away, leaving behind textbooks. Ed cheerfully announces, "That's right, this is an instruction manual." The witch's jaw drops. She realizes the truth and grabs him by the cloak, yelling, "Wait, you have a dimensional storage skill." Ed tries to be low-key, saying it's just something similar, but she completely loses it. An inventory skill is incredibly rare and powerful. If they knew he had it, they could have utilized it in a million different ways. She slaps her head, demanding to know why he never mentioned it before. Ed ignores her complaints and tells them they should really just read what he left behind. It turns out Ed didn't just spend his free time slacking off, he was secretly documenting everything. He put together a list of the most efficient training methods and skill acquisition guides based on all the battles he's observed. The party starts flipping through the materials, and their minds are completely blown. The quiet cleric girl opens a manual and finds a guide to high-level magic she didn't even know existed. Ed casually brushes it off, telling her she'll understand it better when she gets older. "Okay, Unc." Then the vanguard leader pulls out a massive scroll and screeches, "What is this stupidly sophisticated map? It has the perfect layout of every hidden passage, shortcut and trap in the entire region. Details he didn't even notice himself. The Vanguard demands to know how Ed could map out places they haven't even visited yet. But Ed just puts a finger to his lips, whispering that it's a secret since he's not part of the party anymore. Seeing the sheer amount of hidden work Ed was doing behind the scenes, the weight of the mistake hits the hero like a truck. Tears streaming down his face, the hero slams his hands onto the table and bows his head all the way down, crying out, "Ed, I'm sorry. Please forgive my lack of insight. I had no idea you were doing all this work without my knowledge." It is what it is, Hiro-kun. Suddenly, the entire party falls into a pit of despair and guilt. The Vanguard calls himself pathetic for scolding a young man who was doing a better job than him. The witch sighs, looks at Ed and says, "Ha, you idiot. We're taking back our decision. No one has any objections, right?" They want him back. The hero looks up with a hopeful smile, asking him to rejoin. But right then, Ed lifts his hands, his expression turning completely serious and deadpan. "I'm sorry, but I can't come back." The party freezes in shock, thinking they've deeply offended him. But Ed just flashes a warm, cheerful smile, says he looks forward to seeing them defeat the Demon King, and sprints out the door. The party screams for him to wait, but Ed is already booking it down the street. Why is Bro in such a rush? Because his system clock is ticking down fast. Remaining time until return, 10 seconds. Ed sprints up the steps of a nearby clock tower to get away from public view. 5, 4, 3, 2. He catches his breath and smiles as the system finalizes the command. Executing world transmigration. 1, 0. In a spectacular burst of light, Ed's body breaks down into raw energy as he's pulled out of the 100th world. When the blinding light fades, his boot touches down on a smooth, mirror-like floor surrounded by endless light. A new system message rings out. World transmigration complete. Ed looks around with a massive, relaxed grin on his face, stretching out his arms and letting out a sigh of pure relief. "Ah, it's been a while since I've been here." As we zoom out, we see the true jaw-dropping scale of this place. It's a massive celestial hub room filled with an endless line of numbered doors, 005, 006, 007, stretching out as far as the eye can see. Ed collapses back into a chair, completely exhausted. He mentions that this final world took a whole year to clear, which was way longer than usual. He looks directly at a glowing glass orb sitting on the table in front of him. Inside the orb, a dark silhouette reflects his own face. Ed's friendly demeanor completely vanishes, replaced by a cold, sharp gaze as he leans forward. "I've done my best, and I finally made it. Then it's your turn as promised, right? Take me home." We find Ed right back where we left him, sitting in the blinding white hub world, staring down a mysterious crystal ball. He sighs out loud, "Ha, not going to say anything till the end." Well, as I expected. It turns out, when Ed was an ordinary mercenary and got suddenly dragged into this crazy void, the being who summoned him didn't give him a grand speech. There was no booming voice of God. There was only an empty table, a single chair, and a pure white book with a completely blank cover lying right in front of him. Left with absolutely zero guidance and only one door to walk through, Ed had no choice but to read the blank book. And the rules written inside, batshit insanity. To ever return to his original home, Ed had to enter a world, work alongside a hero's party for over half a year, gain a high level of trust, and then get himself deliberately banished. Only then would the conditions be met to bring him back to the white hub room. To make things even worse, once a door was used, it would lock forever, forcing a brand new door to appear for the next world. Convoluted rules. Ed did the math and realized the frustrating truth. To hit his goal, it would take him an entire century of hopping through 100 completely different fantasy worlds and getting kicked out of every single one. But instead of crying about it, look at this absolute madman. He stands up on his chair, throws his arms out, and yells at the void, "Do you understand? I finally did it. Then wouldn't it be great if you could create a little celebratory mood? Fair. Quieter than your love life." The entity says absolutely nothing. Ed slumps down, groaning, but honestly, he can't even stay mad. Because this white world has one massive cheat feature. Bro cannot age while he is inside it. Whenever Ed travels to a fantasy world, his body functions normally. If he trains, he gains serious muscle. If he eats too much, he gains weight. And his hair grows naturally. But the exact second he gets banished and returns to the white world, all of those physical changes completely reset. His body and spirit are instantly snapped back to the exact physical condition he was in the moment he first arrived, permanently keeping Bro in his prime. But while his body stays young, his mind has felt the full weight of 100 years. Ed realizes that if he actually manages to go home now, his mindset is basically that of a century-old veteran. He starts laughing hysterically, but the laughter turns bittersweet. He looks back at his journey and thinks, not even the idiots, and not even my mom. No one cares about me. The screen distorts into a chaotic blur of hazy faces, memories of the countless friends, rivals, and heroes he bonded with over a century, all fading away into white noise because he was forced to leave them behind. Heroes before hoes for real. Snaps out of his thoughts, turns back to the orb and demands, "That's enough, right? Now fulfill your promise and take me home." Suddenly, the crystal ball flashes with blinding light. This is the automated system at work. Every single time Ed got expelled from a world, this orb rewarded him with a unique broken ability. Ed calls them his exiled skills. We finally get a breakdown of what he's packing other than his massive balls. Wanderer's Treasury, a pocket dimension storage box that keeps its inventory even across different universes. Travel Footprints, an automated mapping system that perfectly records hidden passages and traps only he can see. Glasses of 7 lights, an appraisal skill allowing him to see the hidden dormant talents inside any human. Half-fledged counterfeiter, the ability to perfectly replicate any item or technique he has seen even a single time. Ed looks at the floating system text reading Achievement Reward. He admits that it was only because of these broken cheat skills that a completely ordinary guy like him managed to survive 100 different high-tier hero parties. He smirks, extends his hand out over the brilliant light and says, "I don't care if it's the last power. If you're going to give it to me, then how can I not take it?" He slams his hand down onto the crystal ball, officially claiming his 100th and final cheat skill. As Ed slams his hand down onto the crystal ball, a massive bolt of psychic energy spikes straight into his brain. He smiles, sweat dripping down his face, and mutters, "Oi, oi, seriously?" The entity has handed him a power unlike anything he's ever seen before. It's a one-time use ability, and the effect is so utterly broken and precious that Ed immediately realizes he can't afford to waste it until the absolute last minute. He looks up at the orb, demanding, "Give it to me now." But right as the power transfers, the space around him begins to warp and ripple. Ed panics, thinking another standard world door has spawned, but then it hits him. There has never been a door on this side of the room before. Standard doors always spawned perfectly in order, side by side. He dashes across the reflective floor, his eyes widening in pure shock as a massive ornate door materializes out of thin air. It's labeled 000, the door before the very beginning. The door leading directly back to his original home. Ed is absolutely ecstatic. After a century of absolute hell, his ticket back to reality is standing right in front of him. But just as he reaches out, a cold realization hits him like a freight train. Wait, 100 years? Time in these fantasy worlds flows normally, meaning 100 years have also passed in his original world. Did Bro not think about that in the past 100 years? He snaps, gripping his head, screaming at the empty void, "Hey God, I dedicated 100 years to you. My life was literally stolen from me. Everyone I ever knew back home is probably dead. Why did I just keep doing the forced labor you shoved on me without understanding the reason?" Bulging eyes, teeth bared, Ed lets out a roar of absolute betrayal. This is not a reward, but the entity stays completely silent. Instead of an answer, a massive crash echoes through the room. A heavy, iron-bound trunk drops straight out of the sky, slamming onto the reflective floor right in front of him. Ed blinks, his rage briefly short-circuiting as he stares down at the unexpected delivery. Huh? Ed kneels down and cracks open the chest. Inside, he finds another text manual and a beautifully crafted key. The system text reads, "Commemoration service of your total expulsion." Ed's face twists into a hilarious, disgusted smirk. Damn you. I don't know if there can be a more unwanted commemoration service in the entire world. He reads the manual and discovers a hidden mechanic. The digits under the door plates represent how much time has passed in those worlds since he left. He looks at door 000, realizing he can actually go back to the exact day he was kidnapped a century ago. Filled with hope, he runs up to the door and tries to yank the handle. Clank. It doesn't budge. It turns out this special key opens the door to any world he's previously visited, but only once. To unlock door 000 and go home to his original timeline, he has to use this key to enter one of his old worlds, get himself banished all over again, and return here. Has bro not had enough? Ed absolutely loses his mind, crying out, "Ooh, I don't need it. If the condition to return is getting exiled again, I'm going to completely lose my temper." The thought of dealing with another annoying party just to get fired makes him want to flip a table. But then, Ed's tactical brain kicks in. If he just needs to enter a world and get kicked out immediately to trigger the return, he just needs to find a world where he can get speedrun banished. Isn't it an easy win? Suddenly completely cheerful again, he starts skipping and humming down the long corridor of choices. Then where should I go? This one? Or this one? He struts past the endless rows of doors until he stops right back where his century-long journey began. He peeks past the frame of door number 1, his eyes turning sharp. I feel like this is... Ed stands right in front of door number 1. He stares at the plate, a wave of nostalgia hitting him. The first door. The first world, huh? I had a hard time. He looks back at how it all started. A century ago, he was just an ordinary guy, suddenly dropped into a totally alien fantasy world without a single clue what was going on. Back then, he didn't have any combat experience. He tells us that joining the hero's party is something reserved for elite, legendary warriors. An average guy like him only had the basic combat ability to be a low-level town guard. There was absolutely no way he could just walk in and join the legendary squad. So how did a complete rookie manage to worm his way into a hero's inner circle? It was all thanks to his very first exiled skill, awarded to him the absolute second he was summoned: Accidental Flagbearer. This broken passive skill literally forces destiny to bind Ed and the hero together through sheer coincidence. Broken indeed. But even though fate forced them into the same party, Ed still lacked the raw stats to fight alongside them. Living in constant fear of being thrown away, he desperately did whatever he could to remain useful. He became the ultimate support asset, arranging their lodging, procuring consumable supplies, carrying massive mounds of luggage, and gathering geographic intel. For a year and a half, he slaved away as their dedicated assistant. Even though they eventually kicked him out at the exact halfway point of their journey, Ed still fondly remembers them as his very first comrades. He looks closer at the plate digits under the doorframe. 10 years? According to the White World's tracking system, exactly 10 years have passed in world number 1 since he left. Ed looks at a sweeping visualization of the kingdom below. 10 years is more than enough time for a high-tier party to completely obliterate the Demon King. He smiles warmly, assuming he's about to step into a beautifully peaceful post-war paradise. Completely sold on the idea, Ed throws his hands out and declares, "All right, I have decided. If that's the case, why don't I go sightseeing in this peaceful world? Sure, this is technically a forced labor trip mandated by a silent god, and thinking about a century of forced exile still leaves a bitter taste in his mouth. But if he claimed he hated absolutely everything about his journey, he'd be lying. He made some genuinely good memories along the way." With a final determined click, Ed inserts the commemoration key into the lock. "Let's go." Ed pushes the heavy white door open, stepping forward into a brilliant cascade of light. As he leaves the timeless white void behind, he mutters a soft, genuine phrase, "I've missed you." A leather boot presses firmly into a bed of thick, wild grass. The screen transitions into a gorgeous, sprawling view of a massive mountain range under a clear sky. Ed has officially landed back at the very beginning of his century-long journey. Ed looks around the vibrant green plains, his eyes wide. Is this the same place as the first time? Standing back on familiar terrain, the memories rapidly start flooding back. He looks down at the glowing key in his hand, realizing that if he loses this specific item, he'll be permanently stranded here forever. He carefully tucks it away using his dimensional storage. His speedrun to get exiled is simple. Since the Demon King was defeated 10 years ago, there shouldn't be any high-level dangerous monsters roaming around the starter zone. He just needs to stroll into the nearest town, find a local group, get himself instantly fired, and head straight back home to reality. Ed shades his eyes, looking over the ridgeline. There should be a town over there. Oh, there it is. He thinks he's completely safe, casually planning his retirement trip. He notes to himself that it's always important to confirm your surroundings. But right as the words leave his mouth, a massive, terrifying shadow falls over him. The grass trembles. A colossal, monstrous entity, covered in sharp, thick fur, rises directly behind his back, its massive, blinding white eyes locking straight onto Ed's head. Ed's smug grin completely vanishes as a cold sweat breaks out across his face. Huh? Before Ed can even process what's happening, a massive scaly tail slams down right where he was standing, tearing up the earth and shattering the bedrock in a massive shockwave. Ed completely reverses his momentum, diving through the air to execute a narrow evasion. He skids across the grass, checking his footing as his face hardens. Oi, oi. Seriously? Is bro Bakugao? Ed rights himself and looks up to see the true face of the nightmare. It isn't just a regular wild animal. It's an absolute behemoth of a king cobra monster, sporting multiple blinding eyes on its hood and an extra vertical eye right on its forehead, snapping its fangs and hissing with malicious intent. Ed stares up at the sky-scraping predator, completely bewildered. Why would such a big bastard be in a starter zone like this? Nuclear bomb in a crying baby zone. But wait, bro is not a crying baby, he himself is a nuclear bomb. Ed doesn't run. He actually breaks into a massive, highly amused grin. No, this is the perfect situation to try it. He reaches out his arm, and a dark, familiar cosmic ripple tears open next to his shoulder. He invokes his exiled storage ability. Stranger's Box, Wanderer's Treasury. He casually slides his hand inside and pulls out a stunning, pristine silver longsword. He gives it a practice swing, completely satisfied. I didn't know back then, but I guess I can use my exiled skills normally. Next, the massive snake hisses in rage and lunges down, its giant maw wide open, looking to swallow Ed whole in a single bite like your mother did to me last night. Ed doesn't even flinch. He stands his ground, raising a single hand as the beast's giant fangs slam violently into the air, inches from his face. A blinding impact circle ripples out. Ed has activated another defensive cheat skill, Invincible, Impregnable Wall. The beast's raw physical might is completely neutralized by an absolute barrier. Ed points his finger with a cocky smirk, mocking the giant monster. Too bad. That's not enough. I guess your fangs can't reach my body like that. Realizing physical attacks are completely useless, the giant cobra reels its massive neck back, its magical eyes flaring with purple light. It opens its throat and unleashes a massive torrential wave of highly corrosive magic-dissolving acid, completely drenching the entire field and burying Ed under a sea of toxic sludge. The monster thinks it won, but inside the sea of acid, a pristine barrier forms. Ed steps out of the toxic cloud, completely bone-dry, with glowing blue bubbles floating around his clothes. He's activated yet another broken power. Magic Absorb, Magic Curtain of Absorption. The barrier literally converts the high-tier magic attack into raw, harmless energy. Ed stretches his neck, completely relaxed. No problems handling physical or magical attacks, huh? Ed looks up at the monster one last time, his eyes flashing with killing intent. And this is the last one. He drives his legs into the ground, launching himself skyward like a missile, perhaps a nuclear missile. He passes right by the monster's roaring face, and with a single lightning-fast cross-slash, the silver blade leaves a massive blinding white trail across the sky. The camera pans out to show a spectacular double decapitation, The colossal cobra's neck and hood are cleanly sliced into multiple massive pieces, spraying black fluids as the giant apex predator is instantly turned into lunch meat in a fraction of a second. The massive stone-hard segments of the monster crash down onto the earth, kicking up a massive storm of dirt and grass. Ed lands perfectly on his feet, casually sliding his silver sword back into his dimensional pocket. "All right, bro, we peeped the aura." He looks back out over the beautiful sweeping landscape toward the distant town, a dark, incredibly charming smirk spreading across his face. "All right, let's take it slow this time, shall we?" He expected a peaceful, boring paradise, but instead he found a high-level death trap. Ed's vacation has officially turned into an absolute power trip playground.